In the case of Gene Hackman's mysterious death, the testimony of a seemingly harmless neighbor sparked a wave of shock, overturning the entire investigation. Living just steps away from Hackman's home, this neighbor suddenly changed her story after weeks of silence, revealing astonishing details that forced the police to reopen the case. These revelations stunned the family and set the public abuzz. What did she witness on that fateful night? And why has she only now found the courage to speak out? As the truth begins to unfold, a big question arises. What is the true story behind Gene Hackman's death? And why did it take so long for these secrets to come to light? Is there something more hidden beneath the surface? The more we uncover, the more the mystery deepens. Can we handle facing the dark truth that is slowly emerging? It's a reality that may be too much to bear, but it demands answers. If you're curious about the mysterious death of Gene Hackman and the testimony of the neighbor, don't forget to like, share the video, and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to follow more updates on the case. Now, let's dive into the unsolved mysteries that still remain. Gene Hackman, a Hollywood legend who once dominated the silver screen with unforgettable roles, decided to step away from the spotlight to enjoy his final years in Santa Fe, New Mexico. No luxury, no noise, no scandal. This was the life he and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, longed for. Hackman's mansion was not just a home, but a sprawling 9,000-square-foot sanctuary, surrounded by the wild yet peaceful landscapes of Santa Fe. Unlike other Hollywood stars with properties scattered everywhere, Hackman chose a single place to call home, a true paradise after a lifetime dedicated to cinema. During those years, Hackman cared little for the glory of the past. He enjoyed a simple life, his mornings beginning with a hot cup of coffee, a few strokes of the paintbrush, then a walk through the garden, feeling the cool breeze through the branches. If Hollywood thrived on fleeting romances, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were proof of long-lasting dedication. They met in the 1980s when Betsy was a young piano artist. Although Hackman had been married before, Betsy convinced him that he had found his true soulmate. Together, they spent 3 humble decades. Betsy pursued her love of music, while Hackman turned to painting and writing. Neither of them sought fame nor longed for headlines. They only sought a quiet life alongside a simple existence. Strangely, even though Hackman lived a reclusive life, neighbors often saw him lingering around each morning. He would drive out to buy the paper, sometimes stopping at a familiar coffee shop. The shop owner still remembered a man with a wealth of experience, striking with his sharp eyes filled with quiet thoughts. Gene didn't speak much, but when he did, you wanted to listen. One neighbor remarked, "But there was one thing that sparked curiosity. Hackman never opened the door to strangers. Even the closest neighbors rarely crossed the threshold." Hackman's mansion was like a fortress, shared only by him and Betsy. Over time, whispers began to spread. Why did Hackman isolate himself so completely? Was he hiding something in that vast house at the time? Such questions were mere gossip, and no one could have foreseen the tragic chain of events that would unfold, changing everything. Neighbors noticed something strange about 2 weeks before the disturbance occurred. Hackman had stopped his usual trips to buy the paper, and the lights in the mansion stayed on through the night, as if someone was restless or keeping watch. Betsy vanished from sight, even though she often stopped by the nearby market to buy groceries. No one knew what was happening inside the estate. A neighbor recalled, "I remember one late night hearing a strange sound coming from his house, not arguing or shouting, but something else, a noise I still can't identify." But no one thought it was a sign of the apocalypse. No one imagined that just a few days later, no one would see Gene Hackman or Betsy Arakawa again. One morning, the mailman noticed piles of newspapers untouched outside the Hackman house. Neighbors began to take note. There was no activity in the house, no one coming or going, no sounds from inside. That was when the police were called, and when they entered, what they found shook Hollywood to its core. The way Gene Hackman faded, the way the mansion became a hollow shell of silence, was just the prelude to a tragedy far greater than any film he had ever starred in. Because just when everyone thought they had a grasp on what had happened, the shocking testimony of a neighbor changed everything. This story had only just begun. The death of Betsy Arakawa not only stunned the neighbors, but also raised a series of unanswered questions. The woman who had shared over 30 years with Gene Hackman, a steadfast pillar for the Hollywood giant, was now gone under mysterious circumstances. Betsy Arakawa was found in the bathroom on a gloomy February afternoon when the police raided the Hackman estate. No one could have predicted the first sight that would haunt them forever. Betsy slumped beside the fireplace, her head gently resting on the edge of the bathtub, as if she were sleeping. Thyroid medication packets were scattered on the floor, some pills intact, others crushed. Notably, the room was clean, with no signs of struggle or accidents, no wounds, and no evidence of external force. Yet, Betsy had disappeared. What happened when the autopsy report emerged? The mystery deepened. The official cause of death: hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, HPS, a rare disease caused by rodents, attacking the lungs and respiratory system. It starts with flu-like symptoms, rapidly worsening to cause shortness of breath, lung failure, and complete organ failure. However, this was an incident with no trace of rodents inside Hackman's house. No nests, no droppings, nothing suggesting the presence of the virus. What does this mean? The police conducted a search of the mansion for clues. Under the flashlight, they checked every dark corner, every crack, every cupboard, and any place where rodents might hide, but found nothing. The garden was also thoroughly inspected, yet no signs were discovered. Here, the first clue appeared. Faint, old footprints, a few rodent droppings that may have been there for months. But there was no evidence that rodents had infiltrated the house. So how did Betsy contract the virus? And more importantly, why did no one notice anything until it was too late? Another investigation surfaced in the autopsy report. Betsy's time of death was estimated to be around February 11th, yet her body wasn't found for several days after that. No one acknowledged her absence. There were no calls from Betsy, no sight of her stepping outside. Even the delivery person didn't receive any requests from the Hackman estate. The eerie silence lasted for a week, but something grimmer lingered. Gene Hackman also disappeared during that time. A neighbor, Linda Brooks, said something chilling. "I thought Gene had gone somewhere, but there's one thing that haunts me. On the night of February 10th, I saw their lights flickering on and off, as if someone was moving through every room, then everything went silent." What does this imply? Gene Hackman was in that house when Betsy fell ill, but why didn't he call for help? Why wasn't Betsy taken to the hospital? Why would a man play such a dangerous game? Iconic figures on screen lose all control in their own home. Gene Hackman may have known something no one else did. When the news of Betsy's death was reported, instead of clarifying matters, it only made things more complicated. A theory took root. Betsy couldn't have contracted the virus from the house. So where did it come from? Where was Gene Hackman in the days that followed? Why did the FBI suddenly get involved when this seemed to be no crime at all? These questions remain unanswered, but one thing is certain: the story is far from over. The story of Gene Hackman took a sudden turn when a witness appeared with testimony compelling enough to overturn all previous assumptions. The witness was Barbara Lenehan, the neighbor across from Gene's house, and what she shared changed everything. Barbara Lenehan hadn't wanted to intervene, but when news of Gene Hackman's passing broke, something made her feel uneasy. She recalled that just days before Betsy passed away, she had seen Betsy walking in the backyard and smiling at her in a chance encounter. Betsy looked completely fine. I didn't see any signs of illness. So how could she have passed away so suddenly in less than a week? It didn't make sense. If Betsy was truly healthy before her death, what happened to her so quickly and urgently? How did Gene Hackman spend his final days with Betsy? Gene Hackman was left alone in that vast house, and here the story takes a strange and eerie turn. Over 90 years old, Gene Hackman was diagnosed with severe Alzheimer's, his memory and cognition significantly impaired. But no one imagined that for nearly 2 weeks after Betsy's death, no one came to care for him. No family, no friends, no one. What happened after Betsy's death remains a mystery. But from the evidence collected, a grim picture formed. Gene wandered through his own home, lost in a confusion he couldn't understand. He didn't know what had happened to Betsy, didn't know where she had gone. No one cooked for him, no one brought him food. The landline still worked, but Gene didn't make a call, or perhaps he had forgotten. Days passed with no meals, no clean water, no one to talk to. Gene Hackman, the titan of Hollywood who portrayed sharp souls, was now trapped in his own estate, unaware of his gradual decline. When the police found Gene Hackman's body on February 26th, he had been dead for over a week, likely since around February 18th. A major question arose. What caused his death? The autopsy report was shocking. Gene Hackman's stomach was completely empty, with no signs that he had eaten for several days. His body was severely weakened, with vital signs at dangerously low levels. The verdict could be that he passed away from exhaustion and malnutrition. A man who had climbed Hollywood's heights, a legend who left in loneliness and despair. When this truth was revealed, outrage erupted. Why did no one notice that Gene Hackman was in danger? Why was there no medical staff or caregiver after Betsy's death? How could a legend be abandoned like this? Many feel that Gene Hackman could have lived longer if he had received timely care. But the harsh reality is that he was left alone in his own home until his final breath. Gene Hackman was once a symbol of intellect and resilience. But as the lights of Hollywood dimmed and his fame waned, he was left with an empty house and a bitter truth. If you're surprised by the story we're sharing and want to learn more, leave a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a comment with the number 0. Now, let's continue this story. No one remembered him. No grand memorials, no glowing articles about his legacy. Nothing. Barbara Lenehan said something chilling. All he deserved was a better life than this. But it's as if someone decided he shouldn't be remembered. A forgotten suit for a legend who should not fade. And this was just the beginning of a truth still hidden. The discovery left the investigators speechless. As the door opened, a strange scent wafted through the vast mansion. Dim light filtered through dusty windows. Everything was eerily still. The estate that had once been the home of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa now stood isolated and cold, a space abandoned by time. And then they saw him for the first time in nearly 2 weeks. Someone entered the mansion. A maintenance crew and security team had been sent to check the house after losing contact with Gene Hackman. No one expected to face a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The door to the storage room creaked open, and they were left speechless. Gene Hackman lay there, motionless. Not on the bed, not in the living room, but in the storage room, a cramped corner, just a narrow passage between the kitchen and the outdoors. Beside him, a walking stick leaned against the wall, a staff on the floor, an old one. His sunglasses lay near his right hand. We thought he was just sleeping, but then one of the workers touched his shoulder, and that's when we all knew. The room fell into complete silence. No one spoke. Only the cold, painful truth remained. Gene Hackman had passed away alone, without anyone knowing. The forensic report later revealed the harsh truth about Gene Hackman's final moments, with the time of death determined by his pacemaker data. Gene Hackman took his last breath on February 18th, meaning he had been lying there for over a week before being discovered. There were no signs of injury on his body, but there were indications of severe exhaustion, dehydration, and hunger, suggesting he had perished from starvation and exhaustion. There was no disturbance, no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle. It was just a silent house, filled with something strange, an eerie, invisible presence. But that's not the darkest part. The 12-acre estate in Santa Fe was not only the home of Gene and Betsy. 3 dogs lived with them, loyal companions to the couple. However, when investigators searched, they discovered something strange. One of the 3 dogs had died mysteriously. The other 2 survived, wandering the vast grounds, uncared for, neither poisoned nor attacked. The dead dog was found not far from where Betsy had been discovered, as though it had witnessed everything, then collapsed for reasons no one could explain. This raised a big question about what really happened inside that mansion. The deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa are a tragedy, but at the same time they are a mystery, a series of strange events that no one can fully unravel. What really happened inside the vast Santa Fe mansion remains a big question. What caused Betsy's sudden death? Why wasn't Gene Hackman checked for days? The police have ruled out foul play, but not everyone believes that explanation. An initial theory was raised by Gene Hackman's daughter, who suspected carbon monoxide, CO poisoning, a colorless and odorless gas that can kill quickly at high doses. This is not unfounded. The gas heating system in the mansion could have leaked CO. Symptoms of CO poisoning include dizziness, headaches, nausea, disorientation, fatigue, confusion, coma, or death with prolonged exposure. If Betsy died from CO poisoning without being detected, she could have collapsed in the bathroom and been unable to call for help. Gene, suffering from Alzheimer's, might not have recognized the danger and slowly died from the same gas, possibly taking 2 days to seek assistance. However, the police dismissed this theory as the heating system showed no signs of leakage and there were no abnormal CO levels in the tests, despite the doors being closed. Yet, doubts still remain. The confirmed cause of Betsy's death was HPS, hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a rare disease caused by rodents. However, there are still many doubts about the virus's origin. Neighbors never saw any rodents in Hackman's neighborhood, and the police found no signs of rodents. HPS is not common, and only a few people contract it unless exposed directly to the urine or saliva of an infected rodent. So how did Betsy contract this virus? Some theories suggest she might have contracted it elsewhere before returning home, but if so, why didn't Gene get infected? Some medical experts have questioned the diagnosis, suggesting that another cause may have been overlooked in the rush. What is certain is that Betsy's sudden passing occurred before Gene Hackman's decline. Was this merely a tragic coincidence, Or is there something we still haven't grasped? The most debated question is why Gene Hackman wasn't found sooner. He was a Hollywood icon with family, friends, and relatives. Why did no one visit him for nearly 2 weeks after Betsy passed away? Who was responsible for caring for him? No medical staff was called, the family didn't reach out, and neighbors didn't see him step outside. There are still too many unanswered questions about Gene Hackman's passing. Gene Hackman, a giant of cinema who once dominated Hollywood, ended his life alone, amidst doubt and unsolved mysteries. But the biggest question remains: what did he truly leave behind for the world? Hackman's career triumphs undoubtedly overshadow the tragic shadow of his final days. But how will his legacy be remembered? The mansion where Hackman spent his final years may now become a sad monument, or perhaps it will be a forgotten place, tied to unresolved mysteries. Unanswered questions and vague theories continue to haunt Hackman's legacy. Could it be a life filled with regret and unexplainable tragedies? Gene Hackman was a symbol of resilience and talent, but his death exposed dark corners many never imagined. The doubts about his abandonment, the questions of whether anyone knew and turned a blind eye, all sparked ongoing debates. The police may have closed the case, but the questions remain, waiting for the day they might be answered. Gene Hackman's legacy, though undeniable, still resonates deeply with his fans. However, the price for the untold secrets of his life and death may forever remain one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries. The questions surrounding Hackman's death still have no answers. Is there something hidden that we don't know? His death will remain an unsolved mystery. Above all, do we ever truly know what happened in the final chapter of Gene Hackman's life? A Hollywood legend, despite the struggles at the end of his life, Gene Hackman remains one of the greatest icons of cinema. His unforgettable roles will forever be etched in the hearts of fans. However, his passing leaves many unanswered questions. Is the ending of such a great legend a mystery we may never fully understand? With over 60 years in the film industry, he was not only an exceptional actor, but also a symbol of dedication, talent, and determination. His iconic roles, from Poe Doyle in The French Connection to Lex Luthor in Superman, have always been etched in the hearts of fans. Every movie Gene Hackman participated in was not just a film, but also a slice of Hollywood history. But with all his great legacy, his death raises a profound question. Does fame and success truly guarantee a happy ending? The two homes, Santa Fe Mansion, will they become a sad monument or a forgotten shell? After Gene Hackman passed away, his home became a hot topic. Some believe it will become a heritage, a place for fans to honor him. Others believe it is tainted by the tragedies within, a place no one dares to step into. Many shudder at the thought of the 12-acre estate, where Gene Hackman lay for days, unnoticed. It was no longer an ordinary house. It became a dark memory, a symbol of loneliness and unresolved secrets. The debate continues. Will the family keep it, or will it be sold to rid itself of the painful past? Who dares to step into the setting of one of Hollywood's strangest tragedies? Regardless of its fate, the mansion will forever be linked to the mysterious final days of Gene Hackman. After the news of Gene Hackman's death spread, film lovers and colleagues planned a tribute event, a ceremony to honor his cinematic gifts and remind the world of his immense legacy. But a hurdle troubled some. Can we hold a tribute event while questions about his death remain unanswered? Are we honoring a legend or covering up a truth someone once buried? The event organizers wondered if they were obscuring a story they didn't fully understand. The tribute event went on. Hundreds of former colleagues, collaborators, and loyal fans attended. Praise echoed through the room, his films were replayed, and iconic scenes were revisited. However, a quiet unease hung in the air. Have we truly uncovered everything about the ending of Gene Hackman's life? The question lingered, casting a shadow over the celebrations. While everyone honored his legacy, there was still an underlying sense that the full story remained untold. Could we ever fully understand the mystery surrounding his final days? For many years, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were the epitome of a perfect couple. Betsy stood by Gene during his decline, being his most trusted companion. Gene once called Betsy the greatest gift he had ever received. However, they parted ways in the harshest manner, one falling in the bathroom, the other withering in loneliness. This has led many to wonder if fate was too cruel to them. Two souls destined to leave this world in such grim scenes, leaving questions that no one can answer. Gene Hackman had it all: fame, career, love, and wealth. But in the end, what remained was a man who had shaken Hollywood, leaving without anyone knowing. A figure who faced millions of dollars under the spotlight, but was left in the darkness of his home. His greatness cannot be erased, but was his passing a warning? Does fame shield us from loneliness? Can wealth buy a perfect ending? After all, we are left with only ourselves, and no one can answer. But one truth remains. Gene Hackman's story is not just a passing, but a legend, a tragedy, an endless mystery. Thank you for watching this video. If you found the story interesting and want to continue following, don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and everyone around you. Leave a comment with your thoughts below to let us know. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. See you in the next ones.